distinguished audience, District Governor. Thank you very much to the Rotary Club of Dallas and the American Council on Germany for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to talk today about our dual educational system, vocation and training system in Germany. I'm the counselor I'm the counselor with the German embassy in Washington, D.C., and there we deal with science, cooperation, and this is another example for really a good cooperation with the United States. There is a deep cooperation on institutional level, on level between the scientists, and on governmental level as well. So I can assure it's besides education, there are other topics we like to talk about. And so today's topic is the dual vocational education system in Germany, and I will introduce how this is organized in Germany. How does this work? Just the right button. So the success of German global market leaders, the backbone of which are the medium-sized and small companies in the family business in Germany, is based on the fact that we have a special education system in Germany, which is additional to the academic education. So it's called a dual system because we have two cooperating learning venues. So there's on the one side the company. Apprentices learn practical things. They have an occupational training on the job. And on the other side, there are the educational training schools. There is education in the classroom. At the vocational school, students learn aspects of ethics, management skills, communication skills, writing skill, or mathematics, which are related then to the job. And upon completion of such a program, the students will have gained both a practical knowledge and the respective for, and they have all theoretical skills they need for their move on and ahead in their professional career. This education system is based on a law of vocational training entered into force in 1969. And as we learned, it has a really, really old tradition, not only 100 years ago, it's even in the Middle Ages where you can see and find foundings of this system. Very important for us is that this education system brings highly specialized and ultimately well-paid professionals with this system. It's not only the academic education, it's for us also this dual vocational education system. And our new minister, Anja Karliczek, she's in her job since a couple of months, since we have a new government in Germany. She said she will strengthen this system even more to get it more competitive than it was before. So this apprenticeship and training system has now been existing as it is since 100 years, the foundings even longer ago, and has a unique understanding of training and education as it guides young people through participating companies and the education schools. And this education combines the worlds of work and education. 4 stakeholders are the main groups who organize this system. They guarantee that all demands are met. So we have the companies and the Chamber of Commerce, the employees and the social partners like the unions. We have the vocational and training schools, and we have the federal government and the local and the regional governments to support this system. And the apprentices and employees alike, they expect from the vocational training that it is a uniform system in Germany, and that is of a high quality as it is possible. Anyone who learns a trade also wants to advance within that branch and acquires further qualification. The Chambers of Commerce are responsible to guarantee the quality of the training. They, together with the employees, define, supervise, and monitor the way of training of quality. For these reasons, German companies not only participate in this system, they are also decisive drivers of this system, and they develop new job profiles. The Federal Ministry of Education has the lead on federal level together with the local governments, they provide the legal framework. They are responsible of a well-organized education system. Planning, reviewing, and revising are in their responsibility. The long-term planning maintains flexibility to adjust to changing demands, especially when markets are as fast developing as they do today. In developing the curriculum and the requirements for successful completion, industry is an equal partner to the government. They jointly determine the specific skills and the content of each vocational pathway. Although the federal system maintains a strong role in determining the specifics of the curriculum, the states and regional governments can adjust and implement specifics which have to meet the needs of local communities. Furthermore, the federal government set up supporting regulations, like for instance, if anyone switches his field of expertise or his vocation, he does not have to start all over again. So he is able to gain credits or gain credits even for further education. At the end of a successful completion, this results in a state certificate, this education, and this is administered by the corresponding chambers of trade and commerce, allowing students to continue to pursue their respective career or a higher education in a given field. This system shows some figures and shows some facts and figures. You have the numbers also on your table. I saw you have prepared something for this. In Germany, around 1.4 million students are trained in the dual system vocational education and training. This equates about 50% of an annual cohort of students coming from school. The training is conducted on the basis of 350 recognized training occupations. And these regulations for these training occupations are the basis for the education. This education does not have fees as universities or other schools. In contrary, the trainees get a training allowance which averages around 650 euros in Germany, and that can vary from one trade to another or from one industry to another. A good 20% of German companies participate in this education system, and they offer around 500,000 open positions every year. And 2/3 of all apprentices with certificates find an employment after their training, which leads to a relatively low unemployment rate within the youth in Germany, so it's around 6%. The average in the European Union is around 18, so we are in the top there. You have, I think, in the United States, around 9% unemployment rate for the youth. So the investments done by the government and the private sector are quite high, but more or less balanced. Within the 5.9 billion euros of the government investments is the funding of the 1,600 public vocational schools. So the strong support for the dual vocational education by the private sector as well as by the government and the acceptance by the public is based on the benefits each of the groups find for themselves. So on one hand, the youth get an excellent education for free, which on the other side fits well the demands of the labor market. Therefore, apprentices have good chances for further individual development and promotion. For the company, the training is an investment in the future of the company. For apprentices do not just generate costs, they produce earnings through their performance, which will rise up from one year to another. The result is, on a balance, positive, because the apprentices are often hired at the end of their education, thereby saving investments for personal recruitments and training expenses in particular. Generally, the trained apprentices also help reduce staff fluctuations and improve employee retention to the firm. As a result, the youth unemployment rate is very low, as I mentioned before. The benefit for society is that there are less investments necessary for other measurements like labor market matching, costs for unemployment, etc. Finally, the system has a good impact on our prosperity. But there are still challenges. Some of them are inherent occur regularly. For instance, every year, the next cohort of interested youth has to find an appropriate open position. And this search is on either side. The company has to find fitting students for their demand, for their company, and the students have to find an open position which is interesting for them. Especially in these times with a huge number of refugees in Germany, corporations urgently need to establish programs including foreign people that don't have the same education as their peers who grew up in Germany. And there's in Germany, as in other countries, a similar trend that more and more students are looking for an academic education. So we do have this here in the United States, it's in France, so I think this is a general development, which means a growing share of a cohort is not available for dual vocational education and training. So what are the key factors? I want to wrap up this a little bit. So it's our tradition of a good and excellent education in Germany. The structure of the German economy is important. The innovative SME sector is the backbone in Germany. The way German companies are engaged in the education system, and the cooperation between employers and the employees on either side. So may I say a few words about what we did or have done in the German embassy? So we started in 2012 the Skills Initiative, and that's due to the fact that German business investment in the US recently surpassed 255 billion US dollars. More than 3,400 German-owned companies account for approximately 650,000 jobs in the United States. So, mixed up now. And the most important challenge for German companies here is to find appropriate workers, skilled workers. And therefore, the German embassy is very much engaged to support the German companies. And we do this together with the private sector. There's a representative for trade and industry in Washington, D.C., and the German American Chambers of Commerce, which are spread all over the United States. Very much engaged is the GACC Midwest in Chicago and the GACC in Georgia. We have a representative here from the GACC in Texas. And what are the actions of the GACCs? Because they are doing the work on site. They are very much engaged in the initiatives, and they are setting up new programs between companies and the community colleges. They meanwhile partner with around 19 companies, 90 in the US, and more than 30 companies are in talks to participate in the current program. These are German and US companies alike. The GACCs also certify the third-party apprenticeship programs to German standards. Within the portfolio of the GACCs is the management and supervision of the programs. They provide advice and support on all relevant activities. They help find a trade that matches the employer's needs. They do the adjustment of the German Ordinance of Vocational Education. They train and support mentors. They establish examination boards, and they train the examiners. You see, there's a huge variety of what the GACC is providing to run a good and excellent apprenticeship system here, also in the United States. This graph shows you where the regions are, where we focus on these education systems. It's the work of the GACC in Chicago and Atlanta. And there are all these 90 companies involved from the US and non-US companies. And the GACC is still interested in starting clusters also here in Texas. And therefore, it's very important that the first steps come from the companies who are interested in, and if you are interested in participating in such clusters, reach out to the GACC in Texas or to Georgia. They are the experts who will engage you together with the community colleges. Thank you very much.
Will you take some questions?
Yes.
Do we have any questions? George?
What is the age of the students that go into the vocational programs, and how long do those programs last?
So usually the programs last for 3 years, and the youngest age is 16 in Germany, which I know is an issue here in the United States, but we manage this in Georgia. They set up special legislation that also young students can start such programs, but the average age is around 20.
And can you help me with connecting the dots? I was just thinking through the logistics. If you're 16, how do you go about determining what company or industry or skill you want to move into?
So the leaving company gives a lot, the school which leave give a lot of support, and the communities, they do offer a lot of support and advertising where you can find proper companies. Yeah, so he has.
Maybe one thing, as I tried to say in my introductory remarks, Germany is fundamentally different because boys and girls are leaving school at 16. Here we have the unified school system, so they're a little bit older when they finish high school. So I think the way also this apprenticeship program is generally addressed in the United States is that you would catch the high school graduate and have them offer it to them. So you wouldn't entice anybody to leave high school prematurely. So it's not sort of a straight transplant, but you have to make certain adjustments, and one would be to take into consideration the older age of the U.S. Student who graduates high school.
So this is the focus group here, correct? But there are still students in Georgia, which I mentioned, and this is now possible also.
So it seems like we need this in Dallas since we have so many people graduating from high school who can't do anything. So my question is, does this have to be sponsored by industry or government? And as you've had these discussions, what's the big pushback about not doing it?
So I think the American companies, they have a different tradition to organize their education, their training of their worker, and therefore they are very often skeptical to approach such a system because it needs, in the first step, some kind of investment by the company. But as I mentioned, that in Germany, companies know that this investment is worthwhile because they will benefit out of this system because they have an excellent worker afterwards, after this education, and especially in Germany, as there is a uniform system, and every company knows what they can expect from such a certificate. This might be different here because we cannot copy and paste such a system to the United States. Here you will get more and more competitive programs which might be a little bit differently organized, but it's important to have a certain standard what is done with it in such an education program. And as you mentioned, so it's the first step that the industry has to sponsor this, and the chambers, they are open to support this because the important step is to bring together the companies and the community colleges to find proper programs in their education, because this needs to be in a dual system in classroom education and the training on the job.
Germany has certainly led the way in this type of education, which is badly, badly needed here in the United States. Our Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, when she took office, highlighted this as something that she wanted to be one of her priorities. Have you met with Secretary DeVos?
So I haven't met in person, but there is a joint agreement between the German government and the US government administration on cooperation on these topics, and this agreement was signed by the Department of Education, Commerce and Labor and their counterparts in Germany. That was in 2015, and there evolved some kind of exchange of best practice, of learning from each other, and we talk about to extend this agreement to see if there's more cooperation work possible. So the current administration has a little different approach to this topic. So in previous years there was this acknowledged education program by the Department of Labor, and they now want to shift a little bit more to the industry recognized education. And so we will see what this might have an effect in the cooperation, but we still cooperate with the departments, and we are happy to give support and advice wherever we can. So there was this task force set up by the Department of Labor by Secretary Acosta, and when the task force members met, so there was some advice given by some of our GACCs.
Is there some sort of contract between the trainee and the company that the trainee is required to stay with that company for a certain number of years, or can they be poached by a rival company?
No, actually there's no contract who will keep the student after he finished this program, but since this is a very binding program over 3 years, many of the students and our apprentices want to stay in the company. And therefore, the companies are doing these investments voluntarily. So I think in Germany, it doesn't need such a contract.
I wanted to come back to your point. What is a big pushback? And I really appreciate great presentation. From a practical experience, I put 2 of those programs in place, one in Michigan, one in Ohio, and we're currently working with the STC, South Texas College in McAllen. If you're willing to spend in a young individual roughly $100,000 for equipment, for education, and so on, I feel the biggest pushback is, and we talked about that here at the table before, to find the right people, the young people, to explain young people there is something else with a great value other than a college education. That is always, we always were struggling to get the right people on board. Huh? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, maybe therefore it's necessary that the high school has a specific role in promoting such education systems. So we did a roadshow with the embassy a couple of years ago, and we went to the high schools to teach them, to explain how we would advise students to find the proper company. And our GACCs, they advise the companies how they could find fitting students.
I suspect there's a tremendous disparity in attainment of basic reading and numerical skills between the American student and the German student. Is that a factor in the ability of our people to adopt this kind of a training thing?
Actually, I don't think so, because maybe these things will be they origin earlier in education, I think, in the schools already. And as I mentioned, that in the educational school they teach writing skills, mathematics as well, so that's in parallel to improve students when they come from school, when they finish school, especially those who finish earlier in younger age, they still need this kind of education.
Thank you for coming this week. I had a question about higher education in Germany. A couple years back, I looked at a German program for master's degrees. Do y'all still offer international masters in English?
So this increased a lot in the past in Germany. So the higher education system changed. So we do have a lot of strategies organized to make our higher education more visible to the international audience. And there are a lot of programs. I can give you some links in the internet to find appropriate fields. So all the larger universities, they offer also English taught master programs.
I got a question too on, if I'm not mistaken, this kind of started in Atlanta with the big automakers. Can you elaborate on that story? I remember visiting Atlanta and hearing about it, and visiting the GACC as well. And so you had to bring expats in to run the machinery at VW and Mercedes, and eventually that got too expensive. So you're looking at training people there, and then those got poached off right away as soon as they were VW certified or whatever. Is that true? Is that the story, or is that part of it?
That's part of the story, yes. All the larger companies being based here in the United States from Germany, they brought this experience from Germany, that this is a very well working system and that they know that they can rely on this kind of education, and they were looking for better skilled workers here in the United States, and therefore they try to push this system and to bring their experience. And in many fields they have their own certification systems. Volkswagen has it worldwide, no matter where the plant is and the education takes place. They all have the same experience in abilities and capabilities.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
It seems like from our culture here, let's just face it, there is a bias against blue-collar workers. It's sort of like smart people go to college, dumb people become blue-collar workers. And I'm in the construction industry. I can tell you that's not true. There are plenty of very, very bright people that are blue-collar. Is it not a cultural issue in Germany, since it's such a long tradition of apprenticeships, that we sort of dropped off along the way?
So many people only associate this kind of education with blue-collar workers. That is true for a part of it, but we have a lot of other occupations which are organized the same, like nursing, or when you work on a bank as a bank clerk. So you need a community college exam here to do this job, and in Germany you could do this with vocational education, and therefore is the broader accepted because it's not only the blue collar.
Well, and one other thing, I noticed that you're in several states here. How scalable do you think this program is? I mean, Germany is a lot smaller, and you look at the population the size of the United States, you see it as a scalable program.
So I would say it's scalable as much as you want to have it. So it needs then maybe more engagement by the state governments, that they engage more. And there are some examples here. Colorado is very much engaged, and Wisconsin is a lot of things going on. And these programs itself, you can't scale up on state level, but this system can grow.
Very good. Any other questions? If not,
I have just one question. What is the size of the company that's a relevant? What is the size of the company that's a relevant employer or participant? It seems like you'd have to be of a certain scale to meaningfully participate and make the investment, but I don't know.
So actually, we do also have some small companies in Germany with a couple of employees who also offer education. So there's actually no limit downwards in the size of the company. But the bigger the companies, the more programs you can offer.
I think one thing that we need to remember is, and we were already touching on this a little bit, Germany is very regulated. That's in its history also, partly. And the membership in Karsten has referenced the chambers. Membership in the chambers is mandatory in Germany, but it's not sort of a one-way street, it's a two-way street. The chambers fulfill many administrative lobbying functions for its members as well, and they administer the apprenticeship programs, and that helps sort of with the whole regulation on top to have sort of a unified standard. He was mentioning it earlier. So there are how many? 300 different
50.
profiles, 315 different profiles of jobs, and literally they're from international business sales clerks who do international business transactions, and bank clerks. The new incoming CEO of Deutsche Bank actually started as an apprentice with Deutsche and then went to do his university studies. And it's still, I have a lot of fraternity brothers in Germany who went, before they went to law school or to business school, who did a bank apprenticeship. They still consider that sort of the gold standards to learn about the ins and outs of business. So, and then, so there are these profiles, and basically everybody within German industry knows what they get if they hire somebody who has completed this type of profile. And that is something that is literally foreign to us here, but that I believe the chambers are helping to implement, so that you do get somewhat of a, so you refer to it, I believe, as a certificate, but that you get somewhat of a diploma, that folks know what you did and what your capabilities are.
Looks like we have one other question over there. Then we'll bring it to close.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maret Peterson. I'm with the German American Chamber of Commerce in Houston. So I just wanted to let you guys know that we're located in Houston. We cover all of Texas. And we have our skills team located in Atlanta. And we understand it's very confusing when you first hear about the system, and you probably wonder, how is this going to work? If you're interested in it, you don't know where to start. So I want to invite you to reach out to us, either to myself or our skills team in Atlanta. They have plenty of experience with all your questions. They put together the right people and help you to connect with other interested companies and help you to get this started. It is a bit of a process, but it's possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hess, thank you very much. Don't run off. Stay up here a moment. Dr. Hess, in recognition and appreciation for your presentation today, we've made a contribution to a longtime Rotary Club of Dallas, as well as Rotary International initiative for clean water and sanitation. We particularly do that with our club in Ghana, Africa, where we also have a dentistry initiative going on. And this will help change the lives of many, many people for the positive. Thank you for your presentation today.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Just a reminder that next week we will hear from Diane Stanton from the Kellerman Foundation. So please invite a guest and please come. Now, would you please all rise? And Rotarians, let's recite the four-way test, the things that we wish all people lived in their lives. And the things that we think, do, and say. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendship? And fourth, will it be beneficial all concerned? And most important to the, no, not most important, but also important to the Rotary Club of Dallas, number 5. Indeed. We are adjourned.